Thank you for clicking on this video. This video is about the Rough Sleepers Accommodation Programme and entering your first set of bidding data into our investment management system, IMS. My name's Susan Roberts. This video was recorded in two parts, in March 2021 and in September 2020. So first a bit about the two sets of recordings. So the video was originally recorded in September 2020 for the NSAP programme when bidding opened for that. The video has now been updated and those updates include a front end specifically referring to the Rough Sleepers Accommodation Programme, RSAP, and then there's been one minor change on entering offer lines as part of that as well. So the video is going to be a demonstration of inputting your bidding data for RSAP into IMS. The contents will include logging into IMS and specifically, have you got the right type of ID and have you got the right authorities to do what you're looking to do in IMS. In IMS, your rights are known as authorities. I'll then move on to the offer system itself and I'll look at setting up your partnership, setting up your offer template, entering and validating sites and firm offer lines, and then entering and validating an indicative offer line. I'll then look at validating and submitting your offer. And as I'm going through this video, and you're watching it, please remember that this is a video, so you can pause and rewind at any point. We found for NSAP that a number of the providers were watching a bit of the video and then doing the same data input in IMS, watching a bit more and then continuing with their inputting. So you may find that useful too. In terms of the more recent YouTube videos for IMS, they've all got a video description on there. If you click on show more on that video description, you'll actually see the timings of the video. And those timings actually, if you click on them, they'll actually jump you to a section of the video, meaning you can dip in and out of the video. So before I carry on, let me show you that. So I'm in YouTube currently, and this is one of the 21-26 videos for new users. So let me scroll down. You can see the show more. Let me click on that show more, and you'll see underneath there's bits about video structure and so on, all with links. And let me just show you what happens when you click on a link. So let me click on that link, and you'll see that the video jumps to that point in the video for you. So something that might be really useful to you later on. So this is the screen that you will want to pause on and may want to come back to at a later time. So I'm doing this screen now. In terms of IMS, you all have rights within the system, what you can do and what you can't do. If you're a registered provider, you will need certain authorities to be able to bid and submit to us. If you're an unregistered body, a URB, you'll have slightly different rights. This slide shows you what you will need if you're an RP for bidding and if you're a URB, but also the authorities, the rights that you might need later on. And just for speed on these, you'll find it says RP, but it could be URB. So when we go in there, I'll show you how to find this information and to just check, first of all, that you've got the right type of ID, and then we'll look that you have got the right rights within the system, the right authorities. Okay, so that's the end of my little presentation. So I'm now going to log into IMS. So one thing I do need to say is that your logon might look very slightly different to mine. So I've gone to Citrix, which is how you first log into IMS. So you have two logons for IMS. The first is your Citrix logon, which is shared by your whole organization. Now, Citrix for yourselves is just about to be updated in the next few days, as I'm recording this on the 16th of September. So it might look like mine, or it might look like you'll find in the guidance. But log into that. If you're prompted for an ID, your ID will be a 8-digit number ID, and that's how you log into the system. So let me try now. Mine might not ask me for an ID because I've just logged off. Okay, so it has logged in. Now my ID is different to yours. So mine is a name, and it's your organization password. And then click on the log on button. Okay, again, this screen may look slightly different for you. It certainly won't have all the buttons on that I've got. What you will have, or should have, is an icon that says IMS, and then should say IMS Live. I can't enter data as a provider in the live system, so I'm going to go into a copy of IMS, which is the training version of IMS. What I should say as I'm logging in is that the data that you're going to see today has been set up specifically for this demonstration. You will not be seeing anybody else's live data within the system or anything like that. So I always do that for videos. So let me go into IMS. Let me open the system. So it'll take a little time for Citrix to work its way through the system and to come up with the IMS logon window. Okay, so you can see there that I've now got a little grey window on screen. So to start off with, I'm going to log on with the wrong type of user that a number of you may have. So all your IDs start HC16. I'm sorry, my number is 167544. You won't be able to log on with this ID, but you'll have a HC and 6 digits. Then I'm going to enter my password. Click on the log on button. The next thing it's going to ask me for is my organization code. In this case, my code is L0038, but yours could be very different to that. It's all the same version of IMS, it's just a different code. So I've got to the main window of IMS. Some of you who've used IMS before may find that you have a number of different items appearing on screen. Please ignore those for now. So the first thing I want you to do when you log into IMS yourself is to click on this yellow question mark button. So let me do that now. So this yellow question mark tells me who I'm logged on as. And what I'd like you to do when you get in there is to look at the name that's there. So does that just say your name, or does it have something strange after it? So this one reads Joe Bloggs bracket PSA L0038. So this ID is actually a security administrator ID. So security administrators set up users within IMS, and they're from your own organization, so hopefully you recognize the name of the person that's in there. If it was your organization, it should be your name there. And we deliberately name those and set those up slightly different. That they'll either have PSA or admin, and often your organization code after it. So if you are logged on as a security administrator at this point, you'd need to come out of IMS and need to re-log on as an organization user. You'll hopefully have your normal name that you'd recognize appearing on screen. So I'm going to come out of IMS and go back in as a user and not as Joe Bloggs as security administrator. So let me close IMS and go back in. So again, for you, you'd click on IMS Live. I'm obviously going into the training version. Okay, in again. I'm logging in with a different ID. So what's my organisation code? Okay, so it looks the same, but with this time when I click on the question mark button, it says Jane Doe with nothing else after it. And my ID is shown on screen. Nobody else will ever be able to see your ID when they log on, other than Homes England staff in the system. So let's just go in and just double check that Jane does have the right authorities within the system. So click on OK to close it. And then I'm going to go to a part of IMS that a lot of you won't have been in before, which is security. I'm going to click on that security item. I'm going to click on maintain, and then I'm going to look at organisation users, and I'm going to click on the find button that's on screen. So that's found all the users in this organisation. For this organisation that I've got set up, I've only got one user who is Jane Doe. So let me click on that line. And then in the middle, I'm just going to check authorities. So what I can see when I go in there is that Jane has the authorities to input bids and submit bids. So that means when I go into the part of IMS where I'm going to enter my data, I'll be absolutely fine that I can enter and submit the data that I'm entering within the system. So I can close that window. I can click on exit over the left-hand side of the screen, and then click on the yes button because I'm sure I want to exit. And that takes me back to the main menu. Let me just double check something in my system. Okay. I was just checking that I was actually recording, and just in case I'd forgotten to click on the record button. So the part of the system that you're now going to spend the rest of your time in is the offers system. So top menu, second item along is offers. You click on offers and then move your mouse down to offers system. Okay, so blank screen. But what I'm now going to do is I'm going to look at setting up a partnership for this program if you need one. So let's click on the partnerships button to start off with. And what you can see here is there is already a training demonstration partnership set up. But the important thing to look for here is the partnership period. What you're looking to see here on your version of IMS, logged on as yourself, is whether you have a partnership for 2016 to 21. And if you have, you don't need to add a partnership. You can use the partnership that's already set up there. But we haven't got one here, so I'm going to show you how you add that partnership to the system. So the way you do lots of adding in IMS is using the blue plus icon, which will appear at various points on screen. So let me click on the blue plus. So the partnership period I want is the bottom one, which is 1621. Click on that and click on the OK button. So a blank template will appear for me to fill in a blank form. So I'm going to add some naming. It's the name of the partnership. So the way I like to name things is my organisation name, and then I put what it is. So, and then I put the program period afterwards, so that when I'm looking for drop downs potentially later on in the system, I know what's a 1518, what's a 1621, and so on. So I'm going to call this training demo partnership 1621. Okay. And for those of you that are entering this for the first time, then the chances are that you are the only organisation in your partnership. So, what you would do is you would click on the Save button. And what that does is it populates information in the organisation type. So we have 3 organisation types: developing, owning, and owners of land during development. So I'm going to quickly show you how you would add a new organisation if you needed to. So to do that, you would click on the New button. Opens up a new line for you. If you right-click on that line, a query window opens, and right-clicking is a handy one for IMS. So I'm going to put training into the name, so I don't need any more than that. And what this is do is it'll find all organisations that have training in their title. Well, I'm organisation L0038, training provider 1. There's a second provider, L0043, training provider 2. So I'm going to select that, and you can see that's been added to it. Now, if you are having multiple organisations in your partnership, you'll need to do that on each of these three. So you need to go into owning, do exactly the same thing, and so on, until you've got all the organisations that you need. But I'm hoping that most of you will only have the one, so it's very, very easy to do. So now I'm going to click on the Save button and click on the Cancel. Now, cancel appears a number of times in IMS. It doesn't mean cancel as in get rid of everything. It means cancel as in close the window. So as I cancel that, you can see that now we've got at the top, we've got a training demo partnership 1621. So what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to get rid of the window that's got the partnerships in, and I'm going to move onto the offers window. So on the line that says partnerships, at the end of that line, there's a blue door with a red arrow through it. I know it's quite small, but that's what it's meant to be. If you click on that, that will get you back to the grey window. And this is all about not having too many windows open within the system at once. So let me go into offers. Okay, so I'm going to click on the OK button there, and that will show us all programs that our organisation has had offers for in the past. So you can see that there's a training demo for 1518. There's an offer for that, and it's at new status. It was never actually submitted. So let's add our 1621 NSAP offer. So I click on the blue plus. I click on the drop down next to partnership. So I select the 1621, so you can see why it's a good idea to put the program period afterwards. It then wants me to add an agreement, and an agreement is an internal IMS item. So I can see there's nothing on that drop down. So what I need to do is to click on the Create New button. So that's the page with the folded down corner, in the same way that you get that in Word, Excel, and so on. I need to give it a name. So training demo agreement 1621, and I'm going to call this NSAP. Okay, so click on the Save button, and again, here's one of those cancels that you can close. So the offer type, I click on that drop down, you'll see that next steps accommodation appears. Click on that, and that's as you're adding, things change down the screen. So I'm going to give it a name. Oops, that says Demon, but we'll leave it like that. Here, so I did make some mistakes. So training demo offer and 1621. You obviously appropriate to your organisation, as you're obviously doing all of this. So then I'm going to click on the Save button. So what this has done is it's created a blank table, and as we add our offer line data to our offer, so you might have one offer line, you might have more than one offer line. I've done it again. I put Demon in there, so I could change that one quite easily. You'll find that funding requested will populate in here, number of units, and it'll also start to populate data on the contributions tab. You're not entering any of that data directly in. So I'm going to click on Save again and Cancel. Okay, so you can now see we've got two offers within the system. Again, at the end of the line with the offer, is the blue door with the red arrow. So I'm going to click on that. So I said we would now look to enter a firm offer line within the system. So I'm just going to break into video here with some extra information that colleagues have asked me to add about offer line processing route and specifically empty homes, and then a change that's going to appear on the screens after that's going to be different to the ones that you're going to see on screen because they were recorded for NSAP and not for the rough sleepers phase 2. So what colleagues have asked me to stress is about offer line processing routes. So you can find a full definition of offer line processing routes in the Capital Funding Guide, but they will control some of the data fields and some of the questions that you will be asked later on. So there are 5 processing routes: acquisition and works, works only, off the shelf, and I think in IMS it says and ES, so the ampersand ES. ES stands for existing satisfactory. So that's when you're buying second-hand properties that don't need sufficient work done on them. There's then package deal, purchase and repair, and lease and repair. Now, just so that you're aware, if you identify that your offer line is for empty homes, you will only be able to select purchase and repair and lease and repair processing routes. So if that's not correct, then the empty homes box should not be ticked. And you can only enter indicative bids if empty homes has first been selected. And those allocations, so the converse of what was above, can't be applied to acquisition and works, works only, off the shelf and ES processing routes. And you cannot go back and change those options once you've started entering your offer line and saved. So the only way to get around that, if you've started entering the wrong information, is to delete that offer line. So really important that you work out what your processing route is, look at whether it is empty homes, and get those boxes ticked correctly and options selected correctly. So next is specifically if you are entering a rough sleepers accommodation program offer line rather than say substituting an NSAP line. So the next screens that you will see, when you see the geography tab on screen, it will not have this phase 2 rough sleeper accommodation program in there because that's only been included in IMS in phase 2 of the NSAP offers in IMS, which is known as the rough sleeper accommodation program. So if you're entering an RSAP offer line, you'll select next steps accommodation program as your offer type, and then on the geography type you will tick this box to identify that it's phase 2. Just so that you're aware that once you've saved this screen, you cannot change whether this is a phase 2 line at a later date. So I'll now continue with the video as it was, which will look at starting to add that firm offer line to start off with. So the guidance document that we produce that you'll find on our guidance and training page has the details of how you would enter a normal 1621 offer for the SOAP programme, and there's been supplementary guidance on the various bits that are extra for or different for the SOAP programme. I'm actually going to talk you through these offer lines now. So first of all, our offer line. Click on the blue plus to add a new offer line. So a new window will open, and this window will change as the offer window changed as we go through. So first of all, if I click on the partnership, I'll click on the 1621 partnership. I'll then click on the offer name. So there was only one choice. And then I need to give this an offer line name. Now it's totally up to you how you name your offer lines. Makes sense to name them after your site or the area or something like that. So, so this is a firm line demonstration. Okay, obviously pick a title that's appropriate to you. Now, the next things that we need to look at is this bringing empty properties back into use? So for me, it's not bringing empty homes properties back into use. So that means in terms of proposal type, I need to change that to firm. Under this program, the only indicative you can have indicative offer lines is for empty homes. So bringing empty properties back into use. And you'll see the screen has changed quite a bit in doing that. So we now need to enter our operating area. So that the old Homes and Communities Agency and Homes England operated areas. That hopefully most of you are familiar with those old names. So I'm using dummy data in this. So that the data does add up and do what I need it to do, but actually it might not be perfect data. So don't take the numbers as being real. So I'm going to put this as a northwest line, and then I need to find the local authorities. If you try and type in a name here, IMS won't let you do that. A local authority is known by a code within the system. So I told you before about activating a query. So within this local authority box, I'm going to activate a query by right-clicking on my mouse. So this scheme that I'm about to enter is in Tameside. Oops, sorry, entered that in the wrong place. So click on the find. Okay, so it's found Tameside for me. Now the first thing I would do is make a note of the code that your working is with, so you don't have to do this find again. So for this offer line, potentially for all of your offer lines, if you're after an offer line, it might be this. It's probably the same one for you. So click on the OK. Okay, and then click on Save. Okay, so I'm now going to cancel that. Again, it's going to close it. So it's created an offer line there, and it's currently sitting at if you look at the status, it's currently sitting at new. One of the things that's important when you're doing offer lines is to have your site set up. But sites can be a bit problematic when you're setting them up, that you can lose them very easily. So although you can set them up within an offer line, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go over to the Site tab, and I'm going to add my site at that point. So I'm going to click on the Site button and click on the OK. Now you might have a huge list appear here if you've done lots of work with us in the past. It'll show all your sites since the 1115 program. So we're going to click on the plus button, and we're going to add a site description. So this is caps lock. Okay. Now the next one it wants to know is my local authority. So this has to match. So I noted down my code from before. It was 613. I'm going to enter that now and click on the Save button. So you'll see there's 3 tabs that need to be populated, and the first tab is the one that's got the most data in it. So first of all, is this a strategic site? For this, it's no. If it was, it would ask you to enter details of the site. Is the site on brownfield or greenfield, or isn't that applicable? For me, I'm putting on the site's brownfield. Are they shopfront infill? For me, that's no. Traveller pictures isn't part of this program, so automatically set to no. Is the site on greenbelt land? So it's no. HRA automatically populated to no. Then it wants to know, are you using any mechanisms to achieve efficiency in the procurement of this project? If you are, it will ask you to select a mechanism. If you're not, then you just select no and it won't. Okay, if you selected yes and then other, this box here would open up for you to enter. But most of you, my guess is that because of this type of program, you're probably putting no in that box. So now let me go over to the Geography tab. This is one that you've got to be a bit careful when you're entering the data. So the first thing it wants is some 6-digit XY coordinates. Let me enter XY coordinates for my site. Okay, so when you've entered those two, you just need to be a little bit careful. So as you go on to the next box, can you see that a message has appeared on screen? So those XY coordinates have been checked. And what it's done is it's completed some boxes for me. It's completed the rural classification sections, but if you know that your rural classification is wrong, you can click on the drop down and overwrite it. Get rid of the message and overwrite it. Could put yes, and then some comments in there. And the other thing that's here is space for a postcode. If you know a postcode, please put that in. But if you don't, when you ultimately come to do your claim on your site, it will ask you for that information. So the next one is section 106. It's a series of questions that will open up depending on my answers. So are the affordable homes part of a larger mixed tenure scheme and subject to contributions for affordable housing to be secured through a section 106 planning agreement? So I'm going to select no. If I selected yes, other options would open up on screen. Now what I want you to do at this point on yours is to just check what that says in terms of status. Mine says incomplete, and that's absolutely fine at this point. But I'm now going to click on save. Can you see that now has been set to save? And that's what I wanted it to do. Okay, the other thing that's there is a site ID. So I'm going to make a note of that site ID for me. And I'll be able to use that to attach that to my offer line that I started to create. So I'm going to close that. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of, close my site windows. And then I should go straight back to my offers. And I deliberately didn't close that offer line window so that we could get straight back in there. Now, it's really important that you click precisely when you've got these windows open, because IMS will take you to other parts of the system. So we're in the offer lines, so we want to click in the offer line column, offer line name column to get into our data. If we click into offer, we'll get into that window that we started to create that blank table. So we want to go into the offer line. So I always tell people, make sure your scroll bar is over to the left and then click on the second item in. Okay, so this is the offer line that we started to create. You'll notice that the last tab is site. So I'm going to click on that and blue plus to add my site. But it's not just about adding, it's about finding sites as well. So add would add a brand new site. The magnifier would look to find one. So let's click on that find button. And for me, you can see there is only one site that's there. Okay, you could put in a local authority and it'd find just the sites in that local authority. But you can click on the headers to sort them because it obviously will be your last one. I'm going to select that by clicking on it, clicking on OK. And then it wants to know how many firm units are within this offer line. So we're doing a 10 unit scheme here. So I'm going to click on the save button. Okay, so we've now done our geography, done our site, so only one tab to go. But unfortunately, this is where most of the data is. So At the top, we've got processing route, so that's a drop down. So the capital funding guide will tell you the definition of these various options if you need to know that. So we're going to do an acquisition and works scheme here that I'm entering. The type of processing route that you take will affect the questions that you get asked later on as you're editing data, certainly in terms of dates and some of the questions, the fields that you're presented in terms of cost. So that's another reason for getting the right option there. It then wants to know, are you doing any construction innovation? So is it traditional build or has it got something else in it? You might not know that yet, or you may be using traditional build methods. If you're using traditional build, the option to pick is the not applicable. If you're using one of the off-site manufacturing methods, you would pick that, the appropriate one, as in the non-off-site. So let's put not applicable for the site that I'm building. Okay, then underneath that, there's a box that says offer line source and select. What it wants you to do here is to mark this as continuous market engagement. There is also substitution in there, but that's for a later date if you ever need that. So now I'm going to click on the save button. Okay, so now that we've added that, we can go in to add the real detail behind our site and the units that we're going to build on that site and what our costs are and so on. So to get into that, we click on the blue plus. Okay, so first of all, you'll see that some data are automatically populated. The next first drop down is subproduct. So subproduct means tenure effectively. So this one, I'm going to do affordable rent. We already know from our site that it's 10 units, and IMS does do checks to check that everything is matching up within the system. So my dummy data for this line is that I've got £335,000 as a grant ask on this scheme. Okay, so after that, everything else is greyed out. So let me click on the save button. Okay, so you'll see that some of that information has started to populate, but not all of it. For me, I entered 2 developing organisations. So that means IMS doesn't know which one of those you want to pick. So click on the drop down and I'm going to select training provider 1 within that. And it doesn't know who the ultimate owner of the units are, but the majority of people on this programme, it will always be the same organisation. So click on the plus button and then click on the appropriate provider that's there. Here there was only one choice. And the other thing that we need to add is the number of units that are going to that provider or staying with yourself, whichever the case may be. And that has to be add up. All of these, and you normally would only add one of them, have to add up to the same number of units that are up there. So I'm going to click on 0, it's 10. Okay, if you don't do that, it will come up with an error for you a bit later on. Okay, so I'm going to click on the next tab along. Now you'll notice that I'm not saving between going between screens. Sometimes if you're partway between entering data or you're jumping between the tabs, saving will move you to somewhere else. So try and do the tabs sequentially and only save if you have to. Obviously, if you need to go away and get more data and things like that, then yes, by all means save. But try not to jump too much and let IMS control where you need to be. Control IMS by adding everything in order. So, like we added an agreement or an offer before, we are going to do the same here to add our unit data. Okay, so we are going to add unit data for each type of unit within the system. If units have got different sizes, we need to add them on as different units. And you'll see that when I come to do an indicative, I'm going to add two sets of unit data at once. So what type of housing? So we're going to be doing disabled and vulnerable people. So it then wants to know what the category is. So it's designated for housing for disabled and vulnerable. And then I'm going to go through all the bits of information that's here. So affordable rent is my first one. Then it wants to know the number of units. Now, I understand that a number of you are going to be doing some shared properties as you're entering this data. So let me just, before I go any further, talk about how you would enter a shared property. So that's where people will have their own space in a bedroom and then shared space. So effectively, that could be a house that's been split into a couple of different units with some shared kitchen and so on, bathroom within the system. So if you've got anything like that, they don't get entered as a house. They actually get entered as a 4-bed set. And ignore the fact that the house is there. They'll have separate tenancies on them. So that's the right way to enter that data within the system. So I'm going to enter a flat for this. So in terms of my number of bedrooms, it's a 1-bed, 2-person unit. The building type is a flat. The facilities are self-contained. It then wants to know what the works type is. Is it new build or rehab? I'm going to put new build. Is it custom build? So that one will be no. And then it wants to know the number of stories per dwelling. Now this one has confused a lot of people in the past. So block of apartments, 10 stories high. Each apartment occupies 1 floor. The answer to this, the number of stories per dwelling, is 1. We're not, sorry, clicked on the wrong one. We're not asking you for how high that block of flats is. It is for an individual dwelling. So does the unit meet the wheelchair standards? No. And then it wants to know what category accessibility it is. So category 1 means that it's visitable by somebody in a wheelchair. These aren't Homes England Magic Standards. They are the same categories as in the building regs. So I'm going to try first one, category 1. So are the units intended to be move on? I'm going to select yes. Do the units incorporate design features or management arrangements intended to meet the needs of a particular group? If you select yes, then you get the drop down here. So for some of you, it might be that that's relevant for your site. For others of you, it will be no. You don't get those other boxes. Right? Might need to know in there. Okay. Then it wants to know the internal floor area per unit. So my internal floor area is 45. It then wants to know, am I meeting all the National Units Grade space standards? So they're either yes or no. If you stick yes, will populate automatically for you. So I'm now going to click on revenue funding. So I get an error message there. Please ignore that message. So it wants to know the expected market value of the unit. So this unit has an expected market value of 145,000. It wants to know what the prospective rent is. So this is going to be the affordable rent. And for me, for 24, and then it wants to know what the market rent is, which is 143.68. There is also a tick box here for you to add target rent plus service charge exceeds 80% of the market rent for certain properties. Okay, so we missed 2 tabs out in the middle. The first one is revenue funding. So are you getting any revenue funding from elsewhere? So in this case, I'm I'm going to put that you've had some money from, say, probation services. I've just ticked that box. And you can only select one at once. So next I've gone to the client group, and I've put the most appropriate client group. So for this one, I'm selecting single homeless people with support needs. Okay. Okay, so it saved it. So this time we're on a cancel button. Okay, so that's now completed our unit data for us. So next I'm going to move on to capital contributions. So we need to have a value in each one of these. So I will add my actual values first and my non-zero values. So for each individual site, it will be different for you. So this one's got some providers' own resources. And that's all I'm going to add to this one to make my contributions up. So everything else I'm going to put a 0 in. Just watch this one. It's at the bottom. I'm going to go to the very bottom one first and put it in there, because you'll notice this one, other public subsidy. So it says to double click on that line. It won't let me put a 0 in there. That opens up a window. And amounts of other public subsidy need to be added here. They're automatically populated to 0 because on the STOAP program, they generally will be 0 within there. So add any that you need to, click on the save button, and you're done, and you'll now see that everything does have a 0 in it. I'm going to point out this box at the bottom. So it says, of the above contributions, how much borrowing is intended to be secured under an affordable homes guarantee? The answer to that on this programme is 0 for everyone. Okay, but I'm going to leave it blank, and I'm going to show you what happens when I come to validate this line later on, because I'll get an error message within the system. So let me go to the scheme costs. So first question is it public land? For me, it's going to be no, but you can see that different boxes opened up slightly differently if it was. So let me click back onto no. So it then wants to know what the purchase price was. Then wants to know, was it marked down in your accounts? So in this case, no. Then wants to know the work costs and the on costs. Now, the important thing when you've added all your breakdown of costs and your capital contribution and your funding is that on all IMS schemes, you need to look at item L, which is the surplus and deficit, and that's doing a sum, so it's automatically populated for you. And what we'd expect, and what it won't save and validate ultimately at the end, unless you've got that surplus or deficit to 0. Okay, so that data is all added there, and mine does have 0. So let me just actually, on that last box, let me just take out that last digit, 0, and you can see there's a surplus or deficit. So let's put that back, and it goes. So if you have got a surplus and deficit, you chase through that, you go to the funding requested, you go to the capital contributions, and you check all your values that are here. You'll see as you come off a cell that the separator for the thousands appears automatically for you, which does make your numbers a bit easier to read. So next, let me go to the scheme forecast. So depending on what your processing route you originally picked, you might not get all of these appearing here. So my site was acquisition and works. So I need planning on my site. So I've actually already achieved that planning. So I'm going to put the date in. Now there's a number of different ways that you can add it. You can literally use your numerical keys to enter the information. So I'm recording this on the 16th of September, and it's actually, I'm saying it happened yesterday that the planning was achieved. So to tell IMS that that's a lapse date and that it's an actual date and it's okay because of that, I click on that actual tick box in there. Okay, so IMS then will be quite happy with the date for it having gone. I'm going to add the next date in a different way. So the acquisition date I'm going to put in future, and that's going to be the 30th of November. So I've clicked on the drop down, and here there's a spinner. So I'm going to move through the months, and I'm putting this as the 30th of November. Now, one problem if you type your dates in is that IMS knows when all the bank holidays and all the weekends are. So the spinner is helpful there. What I sometimes do is as I've typed in, I then go and I just double check it's a week day, just in case I've made a mistake. So that one's the 30th of November. I'm going to start on site on the 1st of December and of this year, and then my final cost is going to be on the 1st of the 3rd, 21. Okay. So at this point, don't worry that all the money is showing in one place. When we click on the save button, and I am going to do that now, and we might hit some errors as I do that, you'll see that the money moves about, so it's proportioned appropriately between acquisition, start on site, and final cost, if that's applicable on your scheme. If you're an unregistered body, you will have a little tick box under here if you are looking to claim a start on site payment that will also need. So I'm going to click on the save button. Okay, so I said when I was doing the capital contributions that I might get a warning at some point. So I talked about how much borrowing is intended to be secured under an affordable homes guarantee. Must be specified. So click on the OK button, and it's actually jumped me to the right tab, but it's this box at the bottom that I need to put a value in. So I'm going to click on the 0 there, and then I should be fine. So I go back and now click on save. As I go elsewhere, it will come back and populate that split later on, a bit later on in the process. So the next tab is the scheme progress, and the data that you add here needs to agree with the scheme forecast data. So we've achieved planning, we haven't achieved acquisition. So the planning status is, for me, that detailed planning has been approved with no further steps. Okay, so it wants to know the date that that approval was granted, and it needs to match. Okay, depending on which option you picked, other boxes here will open up for you to enter that data. So that's all the grey boxes under planning. If I now click onto land status, so we haven't acquired our land, so we're going to put on this one for my demo that negotiations are underway, and that I am hoping to achieve that acquisition by the 30th of the 11th, 20. You'll note there's no drop downs on these, you just put the date in, and as you come off it, it does change the date to the same format as before. Final question is about works tendering. So works contracting process not yet begun. For my site, you obviously pick the appropriate one. Okay, so next we move on to additional questions. Now, as I'm recording this, these questions are about to be updated in the next day or so. So they won't be the same questions, but to add a response, and I'm going to have to add the same response. I'm going to have to add a response to all of them. All I do is do what it says. It says double click response to edit. So I double click on that cell to respond to that question. And your response should be relevant to that box. For speed on all of these, because I've got a number of them to do, I'm going to put the same comment in. And obviously it's a dummy comment, so I'm going to copy it. And for speed, I'm then going to go down and I'm going to click on everyone and I'm going to paste. You obviously need, when you do yours, to enter correct data within You'll notice that after you've done one, it jumps you back to the top. So it is important to do them in order so that you don't miss one. Just bear with me while I enter this. To do this data, if you wanted, you could have put your answers in a Word document and then individually copied and pasted the individual sections to complete this. Once it's in the paste buffer, it will come through to IMS. I just selected and copied and pasted in IMS using control characters. Nearly there, because I'm getting some of the scroll bar. 2 more to go. Last one. Click on the enter button. Okay, so I've added all my information. So the final tab that's there is the revenue stream. So if you're not looking for revenue funding, you would tick that box. I'll do that on our indicative line. So I'm now going to enter some dummy data within here. So the tenant put some data in per week. It then wants to know the overall support costs. So I'm going to put okay, and then I'm going to enter some amounts. Now these amounts, they are dummy amounts, so they're not going to add up. You will obviously have correct amounts to put in. If you are having contributions, you click on the plus, and then that's free to add those descriptions there. So I have now added all the data for my firm offer line. So I'm going to click on the save button. Okay, so forecast date for acquisition must be specified. So I've forgotten to do something when I've added this. It's jumped me to the point. Okay, when I look at that date, you'll see that it's not changed it to the right date, and that's because November only has, I should have checked that. So you can see now that that's changed. So you can see how IMS has all these rules built into it, most of which you'll never see. So click on the save button and then the cancel button. Okay, so you'll see at the top of the screen this big red box that says data and status invalid. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the validate button, and hopefully we'll see that turn green, or we might get some error messages appearing. So annual revenue profile should always total. Okay, so I've got a validation error because my stuff hasn't added full in the system. So let me go back. It's revenue stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 12,000 in the first year and 0 in the others, so that it does. Oh, sorry, it won't let me do that. So let me put 1,000 in each of these. Sorry, I didn't test all this data beforehand. So that one should be 9. Okay, so when I save now, it should add up. So let me validate. Okay, so offer line data valid with validated with no errors. Okay, so click on that and cancel to take me out of it. So we've got a validated offer line, and that's great. So if you are doing multiple sites, you will need to add one offer line for each site and each tenure of that site. If you're doing both affordable rent and social rent on a site, they'll each need their own offer line. What I'm now going to do is I'm now going to add an indicative line for you and see what happens with that. So offer line. So the partnership is 1621. The offer name is the NSAP. So I'm going to call this line. Sorry, let me just take the capital lock. Okay, so it's indicative, but I need to only be doing that with bringing empty properties back into use. So yes. Okay, so under our operating area, I'm picking the same operating area, but it's going to be a different local authority. So this one again is in the northwest. The minimum geography is Greater Manchester. And then it asks me to identify local authorities. So this site is going to be in Wigan. I'm going to click on Wigan to highlight it. It could be that you were going to pick multiple local authorities and you would just click on another one to do that if that was the case. And then I'm going to click on the Save button. And what you'll notice is that the screen has changed again. Although that Wigan bit looks like it's vanished, it's not. It is still saved within IMS. It's just lost the highlight on it. But you'll notice that this time we only have 2 tabs. We don't have a site tab. So indicative can be, you're going to do units, but at the moment you don't know where those individual empty properties, because that's what we're doing, are. So let me go to the products. This one again, I'm going to put in as, I'm going to put this one down as a purchase and repair. So we only have 2 options under empty homes, either lease or repair or purchase and repair. So everything else is greyed out. We're not ready to click on that blue plus yet. We need to go to the bottom of the screen. Construction innovation. Well, empty properties, they may have been originally constructed with some off-site manufacturer, but the chances are that it's not applicable on existing properties. So I'm going to select that one. And then offer line source is continuous market engagement. Nothing else I can add, so I'm going to click on the Save button. And then I can now add the data that's under the product. So I'm going to click on the plus button. The subproduct, is it affordable rent or is it social rent? Again, I'm going to pick an affordable rent because that's what my data's got. So number of units, on this one I'm going to put a lot more units in that. And again, remember this is dummy data that I'm adding. The next question is about rural sites. So number of units on rural sites, it's automatically populated to 0. If your site is any different, please enter that value in there. I'm going to click on the Save button. Okay, so it now wants me to add my rent information. So I've got some values to add here. So you would add the appropriate values to your sites. Now note some of them talk about per unit, and then there's one at the end that is gross stuff. So annual rental income after service charge, and that's all homes. So I am putting a very small value in there, which is obviously a bit of an unrealistic thing. There's 40 units, but it gives you the idea. It doesn't check that data against anything. You will enter the right information yourselves. So I'm then going to click on the units. So it looks very slightly different to the firm line, but we'll notice a big difference when we try to create our units. So I'm going to create 2 different types of unit on this one. So 21 of the units I think are going to be one size, and 19 are going to be another. So my 21 units are going to be for disabled and vulnerable people. They are going to be for potentially 2 people. They're going to be 1 beds, and they're going to be of the size roughly of 35. And because it's indicative, we are just looking for an estimate of the size of that at this stage. Click on the Save button. I'm now going to add a second lot. So this is for my 19 units. Again, it's for disabled and vulnerable. The number of persons this time, they're going to be 1 bed, 1 person. Smaller units. So again, click on the Save button. Okay, so we've got 2 separate unit types. And as the program progresses and you identify your empty homes, you'll go into the claiming part of the system, which is the profiles part, to split this out into your individual properties. Our capital contributions, the list's slightly smaller, but actually they're more or less the same data that's there. So let me add my data here. And providers and resources. Okay, and everything else is 0 on this time. We don't get asked about the other contributions. That will come later on, but that box at the bottom is still there about the guarantee. So let's put the 0 in there to start off with. Our costs are much lighter at this point in terms of the data that's being required. So it wants an acquisition cost, and that will be a grossed up figure. It wants a works cost. And some on costs. And again, as I'm adding the figures, what I'm keeping an eye on is that item L, that is 0. So delivery profile only comes up on indicative. So what the delivery profile wants us to input is in which quarter we are expecting our starts and completions. So it might be that all 21 starts at the same time, it might be that all 19 of the other type of unit are at the same time, but we could actually put them in different quarters, it wouldn't matter. So in the 2021 quarter 3, so that's the quarter ending December, I'm going to have my 21 starts and I'm going to have my 19 in the following quarter. Now, when the SOAP program was originally announced, when we originally did indicative on other programs, this was 50% at start, 50% at completion. That's now changed, but this part of IMS still wants you to put the values as 50-50. It doesn't mean that that's how you're going to get paid your money. Once you've split these ultimately into individual sites, the claiming part of IMS, the profiles, it will sort itself out and it will split the costs correctly. Okay, so my starts are then and my completions are then. But you just put yours in the quarters that you need to. You can split them up as much or as little as you need. When I did these, I just did a straight pro rata between the values. Okay, additional information. So we have those same questions again on additional information. And we have the same questions again on revenue stream. So I'm going to click on the Save button and click on Cancel. And what I'm going to show you here is that if you enter data that actually it's all gone wrong and it's not going to work for you, that actually you can delete everything. And to do that, you can click on the Delete button. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. So all this data that I've added for the indicative will then vanish. So it asks you, are you sure? So yes, I am. Okay, offer line successfully deleted. So we've only got one offer line under our program, and that is absolutely fine. That offer line is validated. So now that we've entered all our data, because we're going to submit for one offer line and one offer line only under this program, we click on the offer. And I'm going to go into the offer from here, because it's a bit easier rather than closing windows and going elsewhere. So this time, third column in, and you'll now see that our offer has some data appeared in it. We've not added anything in there, but it's taken through our funding requested and our number of units. So I'm going to click on validate, validated with no errors, and then I'm going to click on submit. Okay, so this is where you add comments. And in the paper guidance that you were sent, you'll note that this bit of the system is also due for an update, and there'll be some certifications to complete. So you can see on the status that offer line is now submitted, so gone through to Homes England. If at any point you need to make changes on it, you can't make changes to the offer line directly at this point. You need to get into the offer first. So if I unsubmit the offer, while I'm unsubmitting it, I can then look to get back into the offer line. Ignore that, that's a little funny in the system. It's only because I've deleted an offer line. You'll see that it's valid and it's unsubmitted that offer line for me. So it's done exactly what I wanted it to do at that point. So that's now back with me. So if I needed to, I could make further changes on it. Okay, so that is how you would enter an offer within the system. So remember, you can go back and replay. Enter an offer within the system. So remember, you can go back and replay. I just wanted to direct you to some other videos that you might find useful. So if you go to our website, Investment Management System and Guidance, Documents and Training page, and just scroll down a little bit. Investment System IMS Training. On here you'll find YouTube videos for the Affordable Homes program, the SOAP program. So there are a number of videos here. Just to point out a couple to you. First of all, how to reset your password. It's a 3-minute video within the system. And the final video is for security administrators if they need help creating users. And you scroll up. The other one that might be useful to you if you're hitting errors when you're validating and submitting, there is a video that's specifically about validating and submitting offers. Just so that you're aware, that video refers to open and closed bidding round. This is an open bidding round. Homes England can see the IMS data as you're adding data to the system. So I hope you've found this video useful and that you now feel a lot more confident entering your data into the system. If you want to play the video alongside adding your data, if you're not confident, then that would be a good thing to do.